Okay, we're live now.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. It is 7:01 p.m. I call to order the Mundelein Elementary School District 75 Board of Education meeting. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Christy, I think your volume is off or your speakers are off. You're on mute, Christy.
Doesn't look like she can hear you.
There she is. Can you hear us, Christy?
Now I can. Well, I could. Now it went away. There we go. I can hear now. Okay.
I call the meeting to order and I ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Sorry, I couldn't hear anything. I thought we were still waiting. Okay. DuPont. Is he not here? Just to make sure I'm not hearing.
You're not hearing. I'm here.
He's waving.
Thank you. Okay. Erickson.
Here.
Fingerhut here. Price.
Here.
Gallegos.
Here.
St. Clair.
Here.
And Holly.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is citizens' comments. It doesn't look like we have anybody logged in. All the people we know, correct?
There's 12 attendees.
Okay. Is there anyone logged in that we don't see that would like to address the board? Please click the raise hand icon on the bottom of the screen. Okay, we're going to move on then. Did everyone get their questions answered from the Monday phone call? It's not a very packed agenda, so I don't think there were many questions. So we're going to move on to District 75 report. First up is teaching and learning.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'm joined by Principals Fergus and Drake to discuss some of the tweaks we've made to our hybrid schedule, and by two members of our MIA exec board to discuss the staff return plan to the building. Next slide, please. So first, we're going to share the current breakdown of the data that we received from our first survey, where we asked parents their instructional preference. We've since followed that up with a confirmation and the ability to change formats. And so we're going to share the data and then how that impacts our model at K5. Next slide, please. So what you see here is the data broken down by school. Overall, you would see that about 48% total parents who have chosen remote for their children, 42% have chosen hybrid. That hybrid model will go up to approximately 52%. We have about 10% of the surveys that we're still contacting parents. So that gives you an idea as a whole. I know it looks a little worrisome on the Lincoln side, but just understand that that 44% is only 33 of our families, and Carol Bennett, our principal over there, is working on identifying the best model for those families. When we look at this data, we've also asked for our families to confirm or offer change to what their initial preference was. To give you an idea of how our parents are responding, looking at our Washington school, so far we've received 24 responses from parents to either switch from remote to hybrid or hybrid to remote, and they pretty much offset each other. There's 12 that want to switch from hybrid to remote and 12 that want to switch from remote to hybrid. And so we don't think that those changes, as parents connect with us will affect the plan that you will hear tonight. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tanya and Stephanie to discuss those changes based on this data. So Tanya, Stephanie.
Yes, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. We have made some modifications to the hybrid schedule based on, as Dan had said, you saw it was about half and half. And once we, at the K-5 level, went ahead and looked at the alphabet divide that we discussed, we realized that we potentially could have all of our students who chose hybrid A through Z come together and still abide by our social distancing guidelines and everything, 2 mornings a week in the same mornings. So that is an exciting finding that we had, and able to make sure that we're doing this the best that we can. So a couple main points before we look at the semi-updated schedule is that we have yellow blocks on the schedule which constitute on-demand learning blocks, which is similar to a term maybe asynchronous that you've heard. And what we've done is we want to make sure that everyone realizes that our on-demand learning blocks are not going to be 100% independent asynchronous work. They may include the following items, or times. They may include the students' specials, which is their art, music, PE, etc. It may include times where they receive interventions. So that's logged with us on with a specific teacher, or enrichment of the academic supports. It may be a time where they're provided some of the social emotional support that help them succeed on a daily basis. In addition to that, maybe some of their special education services, if they receive a replacement program and or potentially speech support and services or social work support, those may also be in that on-demand learning block. And then also, small group instruction may occur in there as well, whether it be additional support, working with an aide, and so on. We also want to make sure that everyone notices that the on-demand learning blocks, the yellow learning blocks, are not in isolation. They're not totally separate work and a different task that is not aligned to their daily work that they're doing. It's actually a continuation of the units and the topics of study that they've been working on in class. We also want to celebrate that the way that we're doing this makes it so that students, all of our homerooms will be able to remain intact, instead of what we thought might happen earlier, we would need to make a few changes. Next slide, please. So this is an example of our updated schedule, so to say. If you look at it in 3 main parts, you can see the AM learning block, that's the top section. Then it's divided in the middle by the 1.5 hour block for lunch, which is still the same as it is now. And then you can see the afternoon is that 2-hour learning block at the bottom of the schedule. Looking at it vertically, you can see that Monday and Wednesday and Friday are all remote with the homeroom classes as they are right now. Just like the day looks right now, it would be very, very similar. The difference then is on Tuesday and Thursday. So we have 2 chunks. You can look at the whole Tuesday morning for hybrid students and the whole Tuesday morning for remote learning, for example. The green box is the hybrid students who are in person at school receiving their instruction from the teacher, while the students that are still in that homeroom but chose to stay remote are doing their on-demand home learning activities that are assigned by the teacher. And then the same goes for Thursday. In the afternoon, you can see that it's switched. So what's happening then is the students who were at school that morning are now doing their on-demand follow-up activities in the afternoon for the entire afternoon. And the students who were doing their on-demand activities in the morning on Tuesday and Thursday are now having their real-time instruction virtually, but that direct instruction with the teacher. So it's very similar to what the students received in person in the morning. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Fergus.
Thank you.
Just a couple other things to point out. We know and have learned that on-demand learning is tough, and that kids are going to need a very consistent schedule. So each child will be provided with a consistent weekly schedule to follow with regards to on-demand learning time and real-time instruction, so that they know exactly what every day of the week will look like. The other point is that we have also learned that on-demand learning assignments and requirements will be clearly communicated regularly, And students will be given a checklist to utilize in order to be accountable for their independent work so that there is accountability in that piece. The other issue that we omitted from our slides is we'd like to head on address the TWE program and tell you that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the TWE program will continue exactly as it is. But on Tuesday and Thursday during those hybrid in-person times or the live at-home times, those TWE students will still have time, equal time with both teachers. I'd like to hand it over now to Jackie Ewing, one of our 5th grade teachers, to talk about the impact of a teacher from a teacher standpoint. Mrs. Ewing?
Sure. I also wanted to address, even though our hybrid schedule is staying with the 3 hours of instruction just on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we as a joint team agreed that it still is worth it for students to come in. Some of the things that we mentioned at the October meeting were, you know, how easy it is for teachers to do observational assessments in person for literacy. It's going to give us the ability to make more spontaneous decisions as far as giving students materials on demand right then and there when they need them, especially if they need them for their remote learning the next day. We think that it'll help with more authentic discussions of students and teachers. You don't have to hit that mute button anymore to participate. And so that will be easier to do in person, and it will help with quicker transitions as well. So we still believe that bringing students back as soon as possible for hybrid is a really good choice for us. Next slide, please.
And we will pass it over to Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you, Jackie, Stephanie, and Tanya. Since the summer, District 75 admin and MIA exec have been meeting weekly to discuss both the return of students and staff to the building. And so we want to give an update on where we are in terms of a proposed return to the building. And Ashley Buckman, one of our Carl Sandburg math teachers, and Mia, vice president, and Jackie Ewing, who you just heard from, MG 5th grade teacher, and Mia, co-president, are going to share sort of where we are in that return to the building for our staff. So Jackie and Ashley, I turn it over to you.
Excellent. So as you can see on the screen, this is a timeline for when staff will start returning. We did talk as a joint MIA admin group that our ultimate goal is obviously to get students back in the building. So our first step in that would be making sure that all staff is back in the building. So the way that it looks on this timeline is between now and January 11th, we are encouraging all staff to work from the building at least once during that time. So that would be either, you know, this week or after break, in order to kind of acclimate back to their environment and make sure they have the materials they need. And then starting January 11th, so the 2 weeks between January 11th and January 25th, we're asking all staff members to do a minimum of 2 half days. So each week, basically 1 half day in the building. They could do a full day if they choose, but they would at least get back in their classrooms and do their remote teaching from then. And then January 25th, starting January 25th, we are asking all staff members to come a minimum of 2 full days a week. And this would continue until our phase 2 metrics are met. And at that point, phase 2 is on our metrics dashboard that was shared at the October meeting. That would be when our self-contained special education classrooms of students are returning. So once our phase 2 metrics are met, teachers would return to teach from the building 5 days a week. And then students who are part of those self-contained special ed classrooms would return shortly after. So it would depend the difference in when students and teachers return as to how much notice we need to give families at that time. So that would be that is our transition plan for staff coming back to the buildings. Next slide, please.
With staff members returning to the building, we knew that childcare was a concern for a lot of staff members because they're not sure whether or not their own children would be able to return to their schools as well. The Learning Lounge is going to start on January 11th, and it will be available for staff members who have kids in kindergarten through 8th grade to attend. It will be open from 7:30 till 4 o'clock. And the current plan is that the Learning Lounge would be available at Washington in the library for staff members who work at either Washington or MG. And then the Learning Lounge would be available to staff it would be available at Carl Sandburg for staff members who work at Carl Sandburg or at Lincoln. And the plan is to host it in the library at both schools at this point. Another option is that staff might choose to bring their kids to the building with them while they work from the building. And they could actually have their own kids in the classroom with them until we enter that phase 2. Because once we enter phase 2 and we are starting to prepare to have our students return, then staff would be able to utilize the Learning Lounge if they needed that as a childcare option. Next slide.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our presenters. And with that, I will take questions from the Board of Education.
Hey,
So Dan, this is, sorry, go ahead.
Well,
So this is Wells. I realize parents are brighter than I am, but when I looked at the diagram, I didn't know, or correct me if this is correct. When students are on their Tuesday or Thursday and the parent has chosen hybrid, they will come to the building and be in person the entire morning. Is that correct?
That is correct. They'll be in the building the entire morning.
Okay, and then the differentiation of the two colors is one when they're getting, I guess I'd say it's like in-person instruction in the class all together more or less, as opposed to either specials or small group work. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna, yes, that is correct. Tanya or Stephanie, do you need to add anything to what Wells had said for clarification?
Sure, just, yeah, you are absolutely right. The different colors kind of differentiate that. And so the purple that you saw going down the Monday, Wednesday, Friday is the entire homeroom all together like they are now in that remote setting. The Tuesday and Thursday is where the two groups that split that homeroom alternate. So morning, they're either in class or doing their on-demand activity, and then vice versa in the afternoon.
Okay, and then the reason for only doing a half day still at this point, even though we know we've got approximately half of the parents that prefer in person, is the concern about how do we do safely lunch activities. Is that correct?
That's definitely a huge part of it. Yes.
Okay. And then so correct me if I'm wrong, but so in phase 2, what students start coming back to the room? Is it only special ed?
Go ahead, Dan.
It is our special ed self-contained students. So they have to be in our self-contained programs.
Those were the same ones that we had coming back in October.
Correct.
Yes,
We had them
October.
pulled back in November. So then we would go back to them in October and then proceed from there.
Correct.
So we only come back to a hybrid with all students in phase, whatever it is, 1, I guess.
Phase 3.
Phase 3. Okay. So there's another interim step between that. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, obviously,
I don't remember the phases without having seen them regularly. And then the criteria changes periodically as well. So.
yeah, the criteria we've shared at a previous board meeting. Obviously, information is changing all the time. It's a fluid process, and
Right.
we want to make sure that we're following the data and letting that drive our decisions.
Yeah, because just today, the FDA approved a test which you can do without a prescription in home, and you get a result in 15 minutes. So, maybe things will get better on that score too.
We should only hope.
Right.
Ms. Fingerhut.
A question I had, how is the not the Learning Lounge, I'm sorry, the through the Park District, the kids that are coming in and working, how is that impacted by the hybrid schedule?
Stephanie, do you want to take this one?
So the Park District program has moved to Dunbar, and it will continue exactly as it is. And transportation will be available for those students from Dunbar to all the schools and then back to Dunbar, just as part of our regular transportation. So really, I see no impact whatsoever.
And are we still, I know, because it went back and forth, and I think the way that it settled. So for any of the parents who decided to do the remote option, but with the Park District program, are they still able to do that? Or are we having all of them be in the hybrid model?
They are still able to do that. Dunbar, the Park District is going to run both the hybrid and the remote piece. Although I will tell you, about 95% of them chose hybrid.
Right.
Any other questions?
Can someone give us an estimate about how many teachers are currently teaching in the buildings right now?
I will ask Stephanie and Tanya
Sure.
to share because they are in the buildings with them.
So Mechanics,
Mrs. Burgess, go first.
Mechanics Grove has anywhere from 4 to 8 on any given day, or depending on any quarantine needs and things like that.
Washington has between 8 and 12 on any given day.
Ms. Buckman, can you give us an idea of when I know sometimes you come in, can you give us an idea at Sandburg?
I don't have a really good idea, if I'm being honest. I think when we had kind of done a survey though, it was around 25% of staff, but I think that was all of the buildings included that are currently working from the building, whether it's one day a week or all the days a week.
And isn't technology great? Mark is listening in. He said between 8 to 15, sometimes a little higher on any given day.
I was gonna say, when I drive by Sandburg, there's about 10 or 15 cars there frequently, so somebody's there doing something.
Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for your time and have a happy holidays. I would turn it back to Kevin.
Thank you, everyone.
Ready?
Yep.
Moving on to the agenda, the next topic is the virtual conference follow-up from the panel sessions. So for all of our presenters, if you'd like to stay and hear the panel session reviews, you are more than welcome to. Otherwise, you have your families and probably work you're getting ready for our students. You are free to go, please. Thank you for giving your time to us tonight. So for board members, this is your opportunity to be able to share. If any of you were able to attend the virtual panel sessions for the Triple I conference, to be able to share what you had listened and heard from those meetings or sessions, and share with us anything that you'd like us to potentially investigate further as an admin team based off those conferences. So I guess first thing, was anybody able to attend any of the conferences?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
How, do you want me to do all of them? Do you want me to do, I'm not sure what I should do.
Just pick a couple of things that you.
All right, I'll talk about the first couple, I guess. The first one was a speaker that they brought in for like the keynote address to start everything off. And I wrote powerful speaker, great insights. I'm trying to think of his name. Baratunde. Yeah, he was really, he mixed in some humor. He told some great stories about growing up. Just really sort of powerful stuff to give you more to sort of think about, you know, how things are going out in the world right now. Really, I thought it was a really good kickoff to the conference, or whatever you would call it. He was really dynamic speaker. I really enjoyed it. And then the second one was Cicero District 99. It was community engagement, and basically the whole point of it was that they really are engaging the community to do a one-to-one Chromebook in their district. It's a huge district. I think they said 14 or 15,000 Chromebooks to their students. And the one really thing I took away from that presentation was they do some like parent university type things with technology to try to teach the parents to be like the technology support for the kids working at home on their one-to-one devices, which I thought was kind of unique. I've never really heard anything about something similar to that. So I thought that was really great. I know that Christy has spent a lot of time, especially last spring, with Jordan, like working on technology kinds of things. So I thought that was really good that they offered something like that to help the parents, so the parents aren't sort of lost in helping their kids do their work. So that was really I really took away from that one. And then the last one I'll talk about is called Overcoming Generational Poverty, and it's a program that's in Harrisburg District 3, which is way down south in Illinois. And they have a program called The Matrix, which is a they were gushing over it, but they didn't do a very good job explaining what it was, I'm afraid. So I have the looking for it on my computer. An environment in which something develops, Matrix. So it's basically a series of goals that they have for kids to get them to really participate in their schoolwork. There's like a bunch of goals for like each quarter and for like overall getting their work done, and then going into make sure they're going to graduate and then what they're going to do after they graduate. It's a really great, it's sort of I feel like it's sort of a grassroots sort of effort to get the kids to really take responsibility for their education. So it looked like a really powerful program for the kids down there. I feel like, it's one of those places where the kids grow up and go to school and then just sort of stay and live in the community. And they really feel like that they need to do a better job educating those kids so that they can definitely go to college and then maybe come back and help the community out or go on to other things in their lives. So it was really, they spoke so highly of, you could just tell by the way they talked and the looks on their faces about how proud they were of the success that they've had with the program. So watching that just sort of felt really proud of the kinds of things that they're doing. So that's the first three from me.
I will share, piggybacking on what Kevin said, that program, it was about generational poverty, that third one. And I thought that was really interesting. I got the impression, I agree with Kevin, they didn't explain in great detail exactly what it was, but I got the impression that it was kind of similar to the AVID program, but for not necessarily the higher performing students. And one of the main goals was to, because that cohort of kids is not often the target of widespread programming across the community, with the intention of trying to improve the graduation rate. They had a high dropout rate prior to them implementing the program, and they, really turned that around. So I thought it was really interesting, and I would have been interested in hearing a little bit more details about that. And it seemed like it was, more at the high school level. So how if that was implemented across the community, maybe in different areas, but definitely just a matter of setting the goals and telling kids that just because your families didn't go to college doesn't mean you can't go to college. And let's talk about how to get you there and how to teach you the things that maybe your parents don't know or didn't do, and therefore they can't easily give that information to you and help you. So it was a matter of trying to do that. I thought that was very interesting.
Sorry, Christy, if anyone's interested, I have a 27-page PDF sort of explaining some of the details of the program, so I could share that with people if people want to look at it.
I'd like to see it.
Okay.
So this was this a program that they developed themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what it was? It was one of those really successful programs that like a couple of teachers got behind it and really like drove it and made it a success that it is.
I'd definitely be interested. Yeah, send it to me, because I missed that one. I didn't get that.
Okay.
I also liked the discussion about mental health, empowering student peer support, and trying to destigmatize some of the mental health issues that a lot of the kids, especially middle school age, but even younger, experience, and trying to develop different ways to try to address those needs. But it seemed like a lot of it was about destigmatizing the issue and making it a little bit more normal, realizing that some of these kids, these kids are not alone in their feelings, and encouraging them to share them and to look out for some signs among their classmates and stuff, and to reach out for help. That these are temporary states that we find ourselves in rather than permanent ones. So I thought that was an interesting and helpful.
Yeah, I printed out a handout. What they're doing is they call it teen mental health first aid. Basically what they're doing is they're training students or training kids to be aware and see the signs of stuff. I think it'd be a really good thing for helping out kids that maybe have kids that have issues, and how do you know that it's a problem and what can you do to help them, kind of thing. I think, getting that training out to as many people as possible so that those people could, I think it's different if a teacher intervenes or somebody you don't really know it, but instead it's like a friend of yours, trying to help you intervene. I think that was another really successful program.
Hey, Kevin, make sure you distribute that one too, because I've been to an adult version of mental health first aid, and it was really, really invaluable, and it helps you decide what to do next. It doesn't make you a psychiatrist, a counselor. It just basically empowers you what to do next until the experts can help you, kind of like regular first aid, how to control the blood flow and an injury until the professionals can come. So I would highly like to see what that was about for school age kids.
So I attended, this was obviously my first one. I attended the first two and then the last one. So I just kind of made some notes and underlined some common threads. Similar to what Kevin said, Baratunde was great. I think it was a great start to the entire summit. The second one was very interesting. Obviously Cicero is a much larger district than we are, but very similar. The majority of their students or their population is Hispanic. So there's two things that I underlined. One, they looked at their second language of the students as an opportunity, not as a hindrance. So that's huge. I think we're doing that. We're moving in the right direction with the linguistics program and the TWE program that we have here. So that was good to see and hear that another district looked at that as an opportunity. And then similar to what Kevin said, all stakeholders need to be informed. I underlined that because it's similar to what you said. The teachers, I think, educating them on technology and how prevalent it is now. And obviously it's, that is the future. We need to be prepared for things like this to happen now all the time. And, staying ahead of the game is going to be important. And then the last thing that I wrote down is I thought it was the 3 sessions that I attended. I thought it was, fitting, but also not a coincidence that, the 3 sessions I attended all had involved equity, inclusivity, and biases, right? So it's there. It's something that's real. I think it's something that we all need to embrace and look at and work together as a group, right? Everyone who's here at this meeting. And try to move forward with it. So, it's not just our district that's facing it. I think it's obviously this was hosted by AASB. So I thought that was a common thread.
Thank you. Is there any other board members? Okay.
So I attended a workshop, but it was not at the conference necessarily. I attended the workshop on equity that was presented by the Illinois Association of School Boards. And Dee Molinari and one other person were the presenters. And it was a pretty balanced presentation, I think. And I think that's probably a shorter version of the presentation that we noted that the School Board Association would do for school boards. I know we've got a topic maybe later about some presentations for our boards, but so I don't know, but it was another window into that subject, I guess.
I can follow up about the IASB delegation sessions that I attended. In last year, my first one last year, when I attended, it was kind of a long meeting that took place while all of the other meetings were going on throughout the building. And so obviously I wasn't able to attend any of the other ones that were in those time slots. So what I did appreciate about this year being virtual is they did them on different days. So it didn't stop me from still being able to attend the virtual conference on that Friday. The way they organized this, they had 2 different dates in advance of the well, they had one kind of a informational seminar. Then they had 2 different dates where they encouraged the representatives of the different districts who were proposing the different resolutions to give a period of time. There was a daytime one and an evening one that they could present their 5-minute speech or whatever about really what it was there and answer any questions sort of about it, why they wanted it. And then by the time we got to on the Saturday morning where they were doing the actual voting, it was pretty no nonsense. It was pretty in and out. It took 38 minutes from start to finish. So it was very efficient. Tom Ouimet who was 120's board delegate, and I both commented how much more efficient it was and how we almost prefer they would do this on a yearly basis. Basically, all of the supported, they had a consent agenda for 5 of the resolutions that passed based on the committee that had met in advance and the recommendations. Some appeals had been filed if they had not supported the recommendation, but the boards wanted to file an appeal to still put it on the agenda. None of them ended up getting enough votes to overcome any of the appeals where appeals were filed. And so the ones that were not recommended were not passed. The ones that were passed, with the one exception of the number 4 talking about teacher licensing. They did adopt it with the recommended committee language that had put in there, but they had not adopted it as initially drafted. But everything else was as recommended when we discussed ahead of time that we would follow the committee recommendations, and that's how I voted, and that's what happened. So nothing too terribly surprising there.
Okay, thank you. Last topic we have is a follow-up from a previous board meeting about coming back and having some kind of professional development in regards to equity. And Dan has been working with, the consultant has been working with our admin team and the committee that Wells is serving on to be able to have her be able to work with us on the February 2nd. That's it's going to be a special board meeting date. No one has been in contact with everybody. So if you want to, Dan, you want to get a little feedback on our presenter? Did you hear me, Dan?
No, I didn't hear the last line you said. I'm sorry.
Give a little background on our presenter, please.
Sure. Ms. Dubiel, she's currently the lead person in the DuPage ROE for equity and education. She runs multiple administrator academies and has really just built the program in the state with the equity guidelines that she's put out. And she has been working with our steering committee group, which Wells is a part of. The steering committee group is pleased to be continuing the work with her over the course of the year to build our 3 to 5 year plan. And we just finalized those dates with her today. Yvette, actually, I can tell you just on a personal note, she was recommended to be part of the transition team for Biden. I don't know if she's actually going to do it or not, or if it will become to fruition, but in terms of her presence in the community, in terms of equity, it's a great honor just to be recommended. And we've been working together both in the Illinois Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, as well as with our steering committee. And what we've done is taken the proposal for the work with the steering committee and cut off a little bit for the board to utilize her as a resource, as well as we work on our board policy and anything else that she can help with. So I know that I sent Wells and Lisa some information they had requested. So I guess I'll take some questions if there are about moving forward.
One thing I'd say, so this is an introductory. Lisa and Wells have the information. Lisa was looking for other people to be able to do professional development or provide that. So I think we're still looking to finalize that for anything going further, if I'm correct. And then after that February 2nd date, we can determine next steps that you'd like to take as a board. One of the things that Dan and I are working on is looking at having a student group or a student panel, be able to meet with you as a board and share what their experiences have been going through our school system. When we do that, we'd like to do that when we know we can all be in the same room together, to be able to have that interaction and dialogue. So once we know we can do that, we'll look to have the student panel available for the board also.
Dr. Myers, this is well, I have a question. So am I remembering correctly that you had looked into the Illinois School Board Association workshop and for some reason we couldn't, it wasn't being offered at different places now?
No, when we first looked at it, we were looking at them through the lens of could they help with developing the policy and giving insight. So they do have probably very similar wells to the equity conference that you went to. That one that they certainly could do.
Okay, yeah, because this is only a 1 hour webinar, so or webcast or virtual. So I think their full one is longer than that. But so anyways, okay, so that's still a potential option.
If you, I would recommend if you, I think it was in one of the Kevin's weekly updates, there was a podcast for Sword and Shield from Franzik. That's one that you could, if you're interested in watching.
So Wells, if I'm hearing you, we could look back at the options that the School Board Association has on the topic for equity.
Well, again, I think that's they're as knowledgeable about what's happening with Illinois school boards as anybody, other than an outside individual who may be knowledgeable about what's happening with regard to the subject matter, but not so much school boards. I don't know. I mean, I would refer to the one of the two persons Lisa contacted who had some interest. The other one I don't know that did, and I don't know what the relative expertise is.
Yeah, I think we need some guidance on the policy development piece and whether that comes from a legal firm, like I believe Dan's one resource was, or the Illinois Board, Association, I think is kind of what we're getting at, right, Wells?
No, I don't know that it's policy development that we're going to get from either one. And I would be cautious about using a legal firm other than the district's own legal firm to develop board policy.
I can share with Kevin, who can share with the rest of the board, the Illinois Coalition of Educational Equity Leaders. They have put together a packet of stuff to consider for board policies. I can share that with Kevin, who can share that in an update.
That would be perfect.
Okay. Takes us to the end, sir.
Is that it? Okay. Okay, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Was everyone able to look at the email that Anna sent? I think it was late this morning or this afternoon with the updated personnel report.
Yes.
Okay, great. Does anyone have anything they need to pull out of the consent agenda tonight before we vote? Hearing none, I would say I move to, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
Second by Mr. Gallegos. The secretary, please call the roll.
Holly,
Aye.
Gallegos. Fingerhut, aye. Price.
Aye.
DuPont,
Aye.
St. Clair,
aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is executive session. So I move that the Board of Education convene an executive session at 7:46 PM to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body, and to discussion of minutes lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act. I have a second. Second by Mr. Price. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Holly,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Fingerhut, aye. St. Clair,
Aye.
DuPont.
Aye.
Christy, you'll appreciate this. So we're learning to use, let's see, Seesaw, Zoom, Google something or other, and then D95 introduced a new piece of software yesterday, and I don't think anybody got any notice with my kindergarten person.
We're gonna come to the help desk, Wells. You're the help
Yeah.
desk.
I think Seesaw is a good tool in practice, but it's difficult to get all of the information that's desired out to the families that it's intended to serve. That's all I have to say.
Hi, everyone. Did we go back into open session already, or we?
Good.
Right, we did?
Well, we adjourned from the executive session. According to my tally sheet, we still now have to go into open session to start over again and resume our break.
Let me know when that happens so I can continue recording then.
9:12, we started recording again, the open session.
No, 9:12 was when we exited the executive
Yeah,
session.
all right,
So
so,
now we have to call it to order and go into
Right.
open.
right.
Are we there now?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think we need Kevin to call us to order, and then I have
Yeah.
to technically take roll.
Because I'm not doing it.
Great. So we will call us to order at 9:16 PM. Holly,
Present.
St. Clair,
Here,
Gallegos, Price.
Here.
Fingerhut, here. Erickson,
Here.
and DuPont.
Move that we approve the executive session minutes from November 17, 2020.
Second.
Mrs. Fingerhut, please call the roll.
Holly,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
DuPont. Fingerhut, aye. Price,
Aye.
St. Clair,
fine.
Gallegos.
Okay, next we have President's Prerogative. I will send out tomorrow morning, I will send out the exit slip. Please fill it out, please. I think we had 6 or 7 last time. The petitions for board members are due on Monday. I might be stopping by some of your houses this weekend to see if you're home to sign my petitions. I stopped at Wells House on the way here tonight. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to see at a future meeting or anything else for the good of the group?
I would just reiterate that I'm curious to know how the first grading period went. I had said that at the end of last meeting, but we can have that resumed in a Friday update or something else. I just want to know how it compared to the previous year. I know the high school has reported, where they're at as compared to prior years. I'm curious how we compare.
Yeah, and I had asked about a report from the social workers as well. So I'm assuming all of that is in work and in process.
Christy, your request was put in a follow-up, so that should be coming out, and hopefully this Friday's board report, that should be happening.
Sounds good. Thank you.
At least like we talked about when we met, we were gonna have that in this Friday's update as well, the SEL stuff for social emotional learning.
Okay, thanks.
Well, Kevin, I know my brain is probably getting fried, but so did we approve the consent agenda?
Yes, we did. We did that before we went into executive session.
All right, my error. Thank you.
You voted to approve it.
Well, and then a revised personnel report. I know you asked about, did we see it, but I didn't, maybe that's when I blanked. Sorry.
We voted on that as part of the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hearing no other new business, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
By Mr. Dupont. Mrs. Fingerhut, please call the roll.
Holly,
Aye.
was that Erickson as the second?
No, DuPont was.
Okay, sorry. For some reason, we don't hear on Zoom as many of the in-person audio. So Erickson,
Aye.
Fingerhut, aye. Frice,
Aye.
Gallegos, St. Clair,
Aye.
9:19 p.m.
Have a great holiday, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.